All right, let's dive into a really big question in science. When you hear about some new treatment, some new therapy, how on earth do we know if it's the real deal? We're going to break down the gold standard for figuring out what actually truly works.
You see headlines like this all the time, right? A breakthrough drug for this, a new diet that does that. But how do researchers cut through all the hype, all the hope, to find out what's real? How do they prove that one thing causes another? Well, that journey to find proof is, surprisingly tricky. It's not as simple as just giving a treatment to a bunch of people and seeing if they get better. Because science has this one, single, really formidable enemy.
And that enemy is called bias. It's basically all the hidden influences and accidental patterns that can fool us, that can trick us into seeing a result that isn't really there. And one of its sneakier forms is something called a lurking variable.
A lurking variable is some hidden factor you might not even be thinking about that's secretly messing with your results. So imagine a study for a new blood pressure drug. If the people taking that drug also happen to start exercising more, was it the drug that lowered their blood pressure, or was it the exercise? That's a lurking variable, and it can totally derail the search for truth.
So how do we fight back against these invisible enemies? Well, we have a tool that is just brilliantly simple, but also incredibly powerful: randomization.
See, here's the magic of randomization. By assigning people to groups by pure chance, you don't even need to know what all those lurking variables are. Things like diet, genetics, stress levels, they all get scattered pretty evenly between the groups. They essentially cancel each other out. And this is the key. It's an active process. Researchers don't let people pick their groups. Nope. A computer program or, the flip of a coin makes the decision. This makes sure that the only big difference between the groups, on average, is going to be the treatment itself. Okay, so let's actually step inside a clinical trial and see how this whole randomization thing plays out in the real world. The whole thing follows a very clear, logical sequence. First, you get your participants, and you take a before picture. You measure their blood pressure. Then comes the crucial step, randomization. They're sorted into groups. One group gets the real deal, the actual treatment, while the other gets a fake one, a placebo. After that, you just wait. Could be weeks, could be months. Finally, you take the after picture, measuring everyone's blood pressure again. And if the treatment group improved way more than the placebo group, that is some powerful evidence the drug really works. Now, you might be wondering, why bother with a fake pill? Why not just give the control group nothing at all? Well, the answer gets into one of the most fascinating things in all of medicine. It's called the placebo effect, and it's real. Our brains are so powerful that just the belief that we're getting help can create actual physical changes in our bodies. People's symptoms can genuinely get better just because they think they're on an effective treatment. It's an effect so strong that you have to account for it. And what's really wild is that this effect is so sensitive. Even the form that the fake treatment takes can change how well it works. For instance, one study took people with a mild illness and gave them either a fake injection of salt water, a fake sugar pill, or nothing at all. The results were pretty amazing. The people who got the fake shot reported the most improvement. Then the people who got the fake pill. The group that got nothing felt the worst. That's the placebo effect in action. And that is exactly why you need a control group, to separate the drug's real effect from the simple power of belief.
But hey, the fight against bias doesn't stop there. The best studies, the real gold standard ones, add another layer of protection to make their results even more solid.
And that technique is called blinding. The whole idea is to keep the people involved in the study in the dark about who is getting the real treatment and who's getting the fake one. So, in a single blind study, the participants don't know which group they're in. That's good. But the real gold standard is the double-blind study. In this case, neither the participants nor the researchers measuring the results know who is getting what. This is huge because it prevents anyone's hopes or expectations from subconsciously creeping in and influencing the result.
Okay, so randomization is great, but what if there's one specific variable you're really worried about? Let's say you want to guarantee that you have the exact same number of smokers in your treatment group as your placebo group. Simple randomization might get you close, but it might not be perfect. Is there a way to force a perfect balance? Yep, there is. It's a clever technique called blocked randomization. Here's how it works. You first sort participants into blocks based on that key variable. So for example, you could create a block of 4 men and a separate block of 4 women. Then, inside each of those blocks, you randomly assign half the people to the treatment and half to the placebo. It's a really smart way to guarantee a perfect balance on that specific variable across the whole study.
So we've talked about randomization, placebos, blinding. It sounds like a lot of work, right? But all of these steps, they all serve one single incredibly important goal.
Every one of these intricate steps, all this careful planning, it's all in service of one singular focus. It is the North Star that guides this entire scientific process.
And that goal is to get an answer we can actually trust. It's like you're carefully untangling this really complex knot. The whole process is about systematically stripping away every possible source of error, of bias, of just wishful thinking, so that what's left behind is as close to the truth as we can possibly get.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Think of this as your new critical thinking toolkit. Randomization? That's your tool for handling all those sneaky hidden factors. A placebo control group? That's how you account for the amazing power of the mind. And blinding? That's your shield against expectations. You put them all together, and what you get is scientific evidence that's built on solid ground.
So the next time you see some headline about a miracle new cure, you now have the power to ask the most important question of all. Was it a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial? Because now you know that's the gold standard for finding out what really works.